governance, and so it's a constant feature. Of course, ROPA is a very, should I say, it's a very, it's the odd one, because ROPA is particularly, towards the end of President Kufuor, when he wanted to actually introduce, the Ghanaian diaspora being able to actually vote. And so that is the odd one out, so to speak. And I'm not sure how.
Did that really influence the outcome?
Well, of course not. I don't think that it was really a vote, a catcher or a vote, loser, because obviously we didn't get to implement ROPA. But we sort of tried to do it. So I'm not sure how ROPA was actually in the issue in terms of how it panned out. I mean, and more to say that I wasn't also in the country, so I don't know whether ROPA conversation.
Well, I remember very well that ROPA's discussion was almost like at a level of corruption discussion. It was so much of an interest. The diaspora was very much interested on how the outcome of its implementation was going to go. They were very hungry to be a part of the voting community. So it also took center stage.
Yeah, it would. I mean, it was a novelty, but of course there were controversies around it, how people were going to vote. And I remember I actually wrote an article on that about how it could actually jeopardize the livelihoods of Ghanaians abroad, because a lot of them are undocumented, and people were a little bit afraid that perhaps some countries could actually use it as a basis to actually deport some people, which of course you could actually say that is not possible. But of course there's always a possibility of that. So there was a controversy around it. But as to how that could actually influence the outcome of the election, I'm not really sure about that one.
Well, so 2008, I think. All right, so we have 2012. It says hints of a reunion similar to 2008. We have predicted victory for Mahama, indicated that if the economy was managed well, with revenues from the oil and gas boom at the time, then securing victory for 2016 for the winner would be likely. Otherwise, power would change hands from the NDC to the NPP. And okay, so 2012, the NDC was in power.
Yeah, obviously 2012, I'm not sure at what point did this report actually come out, whether before the 2012 or elections. After the 2012 election. But before. Obviously, 2012 was when, John actually won the election, wasn't it? Yeah, and of course, we know the circumstances, things that actually happened.
Yeah.
We lost our dear, former president. Obviously, there was a huge sway towards Mahama's candidacy. Of course,
so there was a bit of sympathy. Well,
you could argue that, but I'm sure it was on merit as well, because if you listen to the report prior to 2012, even remember 2008 is where the credit crunch happened, and a lot of people forget that we have had serious issues just like we're having now as COVID. And that,
but the dynamics maybe
of course, you're talking about economic situation, you're talking about health plus economic situation, but I'm saying that the credit crunch at the height of it, most economy collapsed. I mean, British economy, American economy, Germany, etc. But there was a report that Ghana actually managed its position well, its finances well. And I quite remember, one of the financial institutions in US giving credit to Ghana's stability at a time when major economies were actually collapsing. So there's a suggestion that perhaps, and when you look at the economic figures, of course, I am not an economist, my colleagues, Professor Lord Mensah and co are, but they can tell you, they can point to 2009, the performances, of that economy at the time, and you probably can link it to how, perhaps, Mahama actually sailed on it, and to actually secure victory for the NDC. So clearly there were quite a lot of things that happened here, especially in 2012. Incidences, both social, economic, and other factors. But clearly we know what happened. The NDC actually secured the win.
What did it mean with the hints of a reunion similar to 2000?
Rerun. I mean, I think they were suggesting that perhaps,
rerun, yes.
Yeah, they were suggesting that perhaps there were going to be a rerun of the election, as opposed to they would, they would have a parry, and then of course, based on that, there would be a second run. But of course, it wasn't.
Yeah.
There was an outright. I think there was an outright, victory.
Okay, it's clear.
Yeah, exactly.
It's clear. Okay, so let's move to 2016. They predicted victory for Nana Addo, predicted that the MPP would perform better in swing constituencies, especially in Accra. Corruption in the Mahama administration fingered mounting voter apathy as a possible issue for either party. In the event, it happened as it did.
Well, certainly I don't think that there was voter apathy for MPP. Certainly there was apathy for NDC. I mean, the 2016 election, it was almost clear because there were quite a lot of issues that bedeviled Mahama's administration, even including internal, party, apathy. So clearly there was an apathy. As opposed to apathy in MPP, I don't think so, because there was almost a major boost, for MPP's victory, because obviously Nana Addo had actually lost twice in a row, and the third time they were not going to come back. So obviously you would expect a party bent on actually winning. And of course, you would say that the NDC had also served 2 times, the usual traditional twice in a row
of the party.
I say, election dynamics, very clear. I mean, sometimes you would expect that this would be a sail through for a party, and then they can actually lose, elections. But of course, if you look at the issues of MPP will perform better in swing constituencies. Certainly they did.
It did.
So you could actually give it to them on that grounds.
It did, and that seemed to have changed in 2020. So in 2020, what we picked was in favor of the MPP due to factors like prudent economic management before COVID-19, industrialization, 1D1F, and strengthening of the financial sector. So most of the government's major policies, the report sought to say that actually gave more advantage to the NPP.
Yeah.
But if you look at the prospects of the NPP, it's rather dwindled.
Yeah, of course. I mean,
2020.
if you look at the 2020 elections, like any other administration, your second term is very difficult to win.
Yeah.
I mean, Kufuor's first term was fantastic. Second term, you could see the dip, and the same thing, happened. 2016, Nana Addo rode in seriously well. Now, 2020, there was a dip. Of course, you would kind of identify certain struggles that the parties would have in terms of being in government, because when you're in opposition, very easy to talk about things. When you're in government, completely different. And then, of course, the party's own missteps, for example, issues that aren't solved in terms of corruption, allegations, etc. And then you're actually pushing back the backs on people. And so it would find it difficult for you to actually maintain a high ground or higher ground as you did in the previous election, which almost you had like a honeymoon, right? So it was clear that yes, they were perhaps going to win, but at a smaller margin. In fact, most people also didn't think that the MPP was going to win the 2020 election, to be fair. I mean, people had their reservations. There were quite a number of analysts who thought that it was going to be closely contested. Of course, I mean, there was closely contested election, and nobody would take it from that, because if you look at the figures, from where Mahama was and how he came back, strongly in 2020, almost 6 million, exactly. So it certainly fitted into those who thought that
the predictions.
Yeah, exactly. That race was not.
Does that mean that if anybody predicted and maybe they didn't get it exact as they predicted, they won't be far from right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, predictions are predictions. Predictions are predictions, to be fair. You could actually use indicators and to predict. Of course, the voters have their own minds, all right? But the beauty in prediction is that you're actually saying this is a likely, situation, that is going to happen. You're not saying for a fact, because you can't tell the factors that would actually change somebody's mind in election. I mean, you can do a poll today. Tomorrow somebody changes their mind and say, I think, because the campaign itself has an effect, it would actually consolidate somebody's thinking, it can reinforce somebody's position, or it can change somebody's position, just a day before the election. So, yeah, predictions are predictions.
Okay, so that's what we have for, we didn't get the 2024, the one that's coming up next, but I think that will actually eat into our discussion. When they do these predictions, apart from voter apathy, which focuses on the people, are there other factors that you can consider with the people?
Yeah, I mean, usually you're looking at big political issues. Corruption is one. Of course, the economy is one. What people feel, or how people feel about situation.
Okay, how they feel.
Exactly, in terms of their pockets, etc. All right. The government's own, missteps in terms of, your attitude towards complaints, whether you're admitting or you're not admitting, etc., could actually be factors that would actually make people apathetic, or make them much more bolder in voting against you. Sometimes people that support you may not really want to go down to vote against you, but they will be apathetic, i.e. they will stay home. They would not actively participate either to campaign for you nor to sort of go ahead and vote for you. So these are some of the reasons why people could be apathetic in one way or the other. But in all, it's about, it's a competition. If your opposing team can suppress your vote by speaking against you and making people feel that indeed you haven't been up to task, and therefore they are much more up to task. It is our competition. For me, I always say that government may lose elections not because they didn't perform better. Sometimes the opposing team actually perform better than you. Sometimes also, you probably are performing better than the opposition in terms of who is speaking to the voter in what way that could actually be persuasive. So it's all about strategy. It's all about your, competencies in convincing the voter that you're the best. That's what it is.
Can we say that maybe throughout the reports that the annual reports that came from EIU, they all had specific basics on which their outcomes were situated?
Most of the time they are situating their factors on economic performances, if you look at it. Majority of time they're looking at the economic performances. Of course, they may talk about governance, which is corruption, a good governance, etc. But
which are like common factors.
Exactly, but that's not the only thing that actually define, elections. There are social issues. There are people who actually feel threatened by a certain administration, and so they may vote according to that.
Feel threatened.
Yeah, there are some people who feel threatened.
No, let's sit. I think we just have to. Now that one came in, please grab a seat. Let's sit and about feel threatened.
Yeah. The reasons why people vote are so many. All right, and that's why I said that the election is not only fought on economic grounds. There are so many reasons why people vote. Some people naturally would not feel comfortable having you as a leader, and so they would want to vote against you. Some people would feel that perhaps with your leadership they feel protected. And so when you go down the line to speak to people, the reasons why they vote, it isn't only economy. There are a lot of social cultural issues. There are a lot of religious issues. There are a lot of, obviously, economic issues. But you see, we predominate the economic issue because, in our understanding, that's the singular most dominant factor that defines or that actually hits on our livelihood.
Yeah, and that's it actually forms the basics, or doesn't it?
Well, it depends, and that's what I'm saying. But majority of people think that the economy is the big issue, all right, and globally.
You don't think so?
Well, there are times where it is not economy, but social factors. And when you read, when you look into the literature and talk about, sociological studies, many people, especially when you go to America, for example, the conservatives, majority of the conservative, voters, would vote because of social issue, not economy. They're looking at abortion, they're looking at your positions on, pro-life or, all those kind of things. When you come to our country, there are people who would actually vote not because of economic issues. People would actually vote because of some social cultural issues that they have. The issue of tribe is a very big issue in this country, only that people don't talk about it. Issue of religion is a very big issue in this country. People don't talk about it. Why was the issue of gayism or this LGBTQ so heated in this country in terms of debate? Do you think that when you go and ask people whether they vote according to that, they will tell you? They will not tell you. But under their own subconsciousness, these are some of the factors that people actually look at in voting. But for some reason, the economy becomes the biggest, to some extent because of media as well. Media would want to sort of take a position. They would like to prime certain issues and leave certain issues. All right?
Let's stick with the...
And even when it comes to the economic issue, we only look at the financial aspect of it. But if you want to talk about economy, jobs is an economic issue. Agriculture is an economic issue. There are so many other economic issues. But we're always looking at inflation.
The fiscal
exactly,
part of the economy.
What do you call forex, exchanges, that kind of thing that we talked about. But we don't even broaden the conversation to look at the issue of maybe jobs, agriculture.
And actually the fiscal factors
we only
is actually influenced by what you're mentioning.
Yeah, and that's media creation.
The agriculture, the social. But in the case of LGBT, for example, sometimes you could say that it's also influenced by the economic conditions, and I'm not talking about the fiscal environment, I'm talking about the economic condition of an individual, because it's an open secret that in LGBT there's a lot of money. You know that.
Yeah, but that is not known by the ordinary voters. They don't actually see it from that perspective. They rather see
that's
it
not
from,
known by them?
Oh no, a lot of ordinary, so-called ordinary voters, I don't think that they will even have an inkling on whether LGBT means some economic gains or not. They wouldn't actually make that connection. Majority of them would make connection from cultural and religious perspectives. The idea that it would dilute their cultural underpinnings, their religious underpinnings, not necessarily economic. I think it would be a stretch for us to think that a voter in my hometown, for example, would actually connect the economy to LGBTQ issues, but rather to, a cultural, religious, basis. But I'm saying that what make people vote the way they do are so many things, all right? Only that because of, if I should use the word mediatization, because of, the media sensation, we tend to limit the conversation to a certain pattern. We prime a certain issue.
So we frame.
We prime them. If you look at even the economic issues as we see it now, it's only a recent, addition, for example. Especially, maybe I may want to attribute it to the time when, Dr. Bawumia, for example, and his mastery on, these economic figures has brought in some craze, on some of these conversations. And so in 2020, then people were saying, how could Nana Jane, for example, compete with Bawumia? Because of that fixation, But there are so many other reasons.
That can't be entirely true.
Well,
that is not the fault of the media for that fixation, because the vice president is always the head of the economic management team.
Yeah, I agree. But the point I'm making is, before the ascension of Dr. Bawumia into the office, there were previous vice presidents who were also heads of economic management team, for example. And sorry to bring in that particular conversation, but do you recall a certain craze, a certain fixation on the kind of economic issues that we discuss as we do now? Oh, there's a different elevation. And credit to Dr. Bawumia, because he brought in that kind of conversation that people hitherto didn't actually focus on. But I'm saying that it had made us sort of restricted, the entire political space in terms of electioneering onto one-sided conversation, which is the economy as we know it.
So, okay, Francis Esiam said I should tell you that he's watching you. She's watching you.
Yeah.
So Francis Esiam.
I used to be on shows with her sometimes. Yeah.
Really?
Those days, I used to go on shows with her and things like that. Yeah.
That's interesting.
In fact, Francis Esiam, Otiko Jaba,
those days.
Gary Nemako and Co.
Those days. So Francis Esiam, good evening to you, and I hope you're enjoying the show.
Excellent,
So let's go into the phone lines and speak with Dr. H.A. Sikanko as well. I'm told he's joined us. Okay, so right, when we get him, please let me know, and then we can. So let's deal with this. My producers or researchers actually gave me all the details. I don't know why the 2024 you didn't give me on the screen. If it's there, please let me have it.
I can read
the 2024. I actually have it, but I just want it on the screen for the purposes of viewers, so that they can also appreciate where we're coming. So for 2024 EIU, it says that NDC stands a better chance of winning if Mahama is replaced as candidate. The satisfaction with NPP government due to factors such as economic crunch, poor infrastructure, and deep-rooted corruption and high employment levels. Do you have it? Okay, good. We have it on the screen. High employment levels. Highlights, it says that the former President John Dramani Mahama reportedly considering running again, but we expect the opposition NDC to try to revitalize its prospects with a fresh candidate. That's the EIU baseline forecast is that ongoing public dissatisfaction with a slow pace of improvement in governance, such as infrastructure development, job creation, and easing of corruption, will trigger anti-incumbency factors and push the electorate to seek a change. The NDC therefore stands a reasonable chance of winning the 2024 elections. A chunk of them, or a number of them I've spoken with, are not the least pleased.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think that it's a disjointed report, so to speak, because if you actually say that the party stand a chance of winning because of the government's slow pace in development, how then do you link it to the candidates, being possibly changed as a factor? That actually is the disjointed position, and I think that they coined it to seem as though it's a finding. But that's an opinion that they actually.
How do you establish that?
Yeah, because if you read a text, we hope, or they use a word to say that NDC would try to revitalize. That's a complete opinion you're sharing, and it's not even a public opinion, because if it's a public opinion, you would actually make a bold statement that a chunk of the public actually expect Mahama to be changed in order for them to win election.
So,
that is not
for example, they can state the sample size and tell us that, it's a so and so percentage expects that he.
Exactly. Yeah. But if you say that it's your baseline analysis or baseline forecast, I mean, even give us, the kind of, factors or the information that is actually giving you that baseline information. There's no, link to that. There's no explanation to that. So you find it disingenuous. I mean, I find it very disingenuous to actually put that statement, because if it's a public opinion, of course, there are a section of people, let us be clear, who feel that, Mahama must be changed. But that's a very minute, a small number. The predominant number of NDC people, when you speak to them, they feel that Mahama must be retained. And I'm on Twitter, for example, 24/7. You see a complete craze of the NDC, grassroots, thinking that Mahama has to be retained.
Yeah, but if there's a deliberate attempt or effort to still hoist that candidature, it doesn't necessarily represent what's on the ground.
No. I don't think that there's a deliberate. I think that you would actually be able to gauge from how the base of the party responds to his response to the administration's, moves, incursions. And that could actually tell you that, majority of them actually want him as a lead. Of course, we have to be very frank and say that there are other sections within the NDC who also feel that, the candidature has to be changed. And that is the position that the EIU is actually, holding on. I think if you're holding on that position, you have to be right in pushing the other side of the position, that there are also a groundswell of people who feel that he has to actually be retained. Then we can see that it's a fair assessment. But you're not actually pushing that, and you're not letting us know that this is your opinion and couching it as if it's a report. I mean, it's a research finding. That is very disingenuous.
But that's a report we have, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what we have. It's they call it a baseline.
A baseline
forecast.
Yes, forecast.
Yeah.
And it was, well, for the purpose of those who said the report was 2021, by the date it was conducted.
It's 14th
March 2022. And I mean, when it was released, that's 13th April,
yeah,
2022. Yeah. So it was a 2022 report that we're actually analyzing, not a 2021. No. I mean, as far as the information
on the
our research is concerned,
14th
on a document
March.
that we have. So, Professor John Gachi on the the head of the economic management team, he says the economic management team is not a creature of the Constitution. We know that. He says that it is a convention to coordinate for swift decision by cabinet, elevating it above cabinet. He says. So thank you for contributing that. That's we accept it. But because a convention that's been practiced over a period, if you try to change the dynamics, you definitely will have some debates.
Of course, I mean the public would actually kind of contribute, they will question, etc. So most administration, I think they've actually followed the norm. Over the years. I'm not sure, I don't know the formation of it and the history of it. Obviously, my colleagues, Professor Gachi, for example, Lord, will be able to tell that. It means that the party has to take measures in order not to break its front. So once this conversation is going on, then you have to actually ask yourself, how do you mobilize? How do you give hope to the people? How do you let your followers understand that you are one united ship?
Right.
Going for this battle, so that you don't seem to create a divided front, a cracked, party, etc. So they have to be worried, and they have to take the necessary, steps in safeguarding, their organization and the organization's strength. I mean, people must believe that they have the competencies and the machinery to actually, win the election. So they have to take it seriously.
So I spoke with Benef's pollster, and he said that what I captured, he said Mahama has never tried to rethink or polish the perception people who voted against him, re-register his interest in coming again, and so he's been in opposition, but he's never made any effort or attempt. Is that fair?
No, I think I will politely disagree with Uncle Ben on this because we've seen quite a number of activities that former President John Mahama actually done in terms of trying to serve as a de facto, leader of the NDC at a time when they hadn't selected, their candidacy. You have to have someone who speaks for the opposition, and over the years,
precisely the main opposition, or the biggest opposition.
Yeah, who has been responding to the overtures or to the moves of this particular administration is him. So you could clearly say that he's been taking leadership position in making sure that he could present, the voices, of the other side of the electoral divide. Not only the core followers of the NDC, but anyone who actually perhaps didn't want NPP to be in power. I always say that, look, only political parties can, contest, in terms of, going against an incumbent in the position. Only political parties can actually do that job for you. Individuals can't do it because you don't have the capacity to actually contest a certain government. I, for example, or academics, for example, cannot actually do the job of contesting, a government because of a sheer machinery they have, a sheer followership they have. So it is only the opposition party that can actually do the job. And so if, for example, a government is pushing down policies that they feel that it is not in the interest of the general public, it is only an opposition party that can actually do the job. And I think that he has done that excellently well over the period. He has provided the voices for the other side of the electoral divide, and is seen as a de facto leader, from the NDC's
yeah, but providing a voice,
at the
seen
moment.
as a de facto leader and all that does not culminate into you giving us a clear-cut pathway or policy, or we can depend on the manifesto of 2020?
I mean, currently that's the document that is actually in operation for them, for the NDC.
As a party?
As a party.
Not as a candidate, John Mahama.
No, I mean, remember, we don't run, we always will say that we have a presidential, system, but we have that presidential riding on a party's, ticket. So the party is the vehicle, on which a candidate become a president. And so you couldn't actually hold yourself, you know, as the one, but you can hold yourself as a leader of a particular party and speak as such. So I'm not sure, with all due respect, you know, how Uncle Ben expects Muhammad to carry himself. I think that the last election he did fantastically well. I mean, from where he came from, from where he came, that is votes in 2016 up until 2020 election. You could see an appreciable vote that he accumulated. Of course, you could also attribute it to quite a number of other factors. I think that the vice presidential candidate was amazing and could actually have contributed to, you know, that successes.
You mean
the manifesto? Yeah, the manifesto was fantastic. First time we have heard, you know, an election in this country where manifestos were at the center stage in terms of conversation. I'm sure most of you can attest to that fact, that, you know, in the past people would say, oh, in Ghana election we don't discuss issues, but the last election you could see an intense, you know, conversation on party manifestos, and a chunk of that can be attributed to the NDC manifesto, which they call it the People's Manifesto. I think it was amazing that we actually drilled down on that particular conversation, to the extent that the MPP manifesto...
Looking at the nitty-gritty of the manifesto, at what point do you call it an amazing manifesto?
Yeah, there were quite a number of novel issues in that manifesto.
For example?
You were talking about, the maternity. You know, you were talking about, you know, whether you like it or not, the
big
Okada,
push. I remember the big push.
Exactly, the Okada issue.
I remember
the big
Okada.
Push. Exactly, these were issues that actually confronted, or that actually, you know, sort of took a center stage in our conversation. These are issues, whether you liked the Okada or not. It was quite, you know, an issue for the public to discuss, because it bordered on economic as well as social issues, because there were people whose livelihood actually dependent on the Okada riding. And whether you wanted to be in the street or not, we were confronted by that issue to discuss it. I mean, the issue about, you know, the 4-month maternity leave, it was a social issue as well as an economic one. And you have these issues. The big push was novel. I mean, if you look at the details of that, you know, and then of course we had to discuss whether free education had to be extended, you know, to university level, which MPP had that position. NDC also came out with their position on that. So you realize that in the 2020 election, the NDC's manifesto actually pushed a lot of journalists and a lot of, you know, media watchers to discuss, opposed to the previous years that we always say that we hadn't actually paid attention to discussing issues in this country. And that's why I think that it was a good thing.
I want to believe that because maybe previously NDC as a party has a problem with its policies and the way it couches, and they always seem to criticize the MPP that comes out with fantastic phrases. It's a fact. I mean, I know you know it's true.
Oh, well,
the MPP
I don't know it's true.
You don't know it's true. No, okay, fine. The MPP knows how to couch phrases for its policies, and it's easy to buy in. It's understandable. It's clear. For example, free SHS. Let's just say free SHS.
Yeah.
So the MPP says free SHS. It doesn't say progressively free. It doesn't say.
Okay, I understand the point you're making. I understand it. I mean, my PhD.
They just say free SHS. I mean, and you know, you were a lecturer. I mean, you lectured me. You know.
No, I know what you mean.
Okay,
I know what you mean.
Go ahead.
My PhD is exactly on MPP's strategy in 2000, and I can tell for a fact, as you said, from what I actually, you know, the way NPP organizes its programs in the 2000 elections. You know, talk about the 5 key pillars of the MPP at the time with Jacob Echebilamte of blessed memory. You talk about the capitation grant, you talk about the, you know, the mass transportation, you talk about the, the repeal of the criminal libel law. These were policies that people can easily recall.
Yeah.
And that's why I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
But that has been a perception because of the 2000 election. It was a watermark moment. It was how do I put it? It was a defining moment in our political system. Why? Because there were quite a number of novel approaches in that, all right? The way the MPP marketed, used media, all right, to advertise, it was new to us. I mean, we were used to the usual rallies. Right. MPP did completely different. And that perception had actually gone on to benefit them in terms of how people perceive the way MPP organized itself. But that does not mean that subsequently it had followed through. Mm-hmm. I mean, to be very honest, if you look at the 2008 onwards, all right, even in 2004 elections, 2008 elections, you could barely actually recall mm-hmm. some of the policies that were advanced, mm-hmm. even from these two parties. In fact, most of the things that people remember on policies and the naming of the policies, it dates back to 2000. And that's why people have that particular, perception as though, the MPP is better in terms of how it organizes its, its programs.
Yes, and that is also because if we cannot recall, if you can't recall easily from 2008 elections, from maybe 2012 elections, yes. and you want to recall from 2020 downwards, and you can get it. That's because you want to check the dynamics of the voting public and see how they are growing, and you go along with, which is what I give to the MPP, that they try.
I think that from my own assessment, over the years, the mobilizing and organizing capacity of the MPP has reduced, and that's an honest opinion. That of the NDC has increased and has actually, enhanced. That's the
mobilizing
right
capacity.
Yeah, because when you look at the plane, all right, currently as we speak, I can give you two different ways of how these two parties organize themselves. And I'll give you a typical example. In 2000, you can almost close your eye and count the number of people in leadership positions in MPP and recount them by fingertips, all right? Mm-hmm. You can talk about Selby, you can talk about, Apraku, for example. You can talk about, Dr. Mensah, what's his name? I've forgotten. I mean, there were quite a number of leaders. I mean, Odoisa Senko, you can actually talk about them. All right, you can talk about Gladys Asma, you can talk about Christian Churchill. It was very clear the way NPP organized itself and portrayed its image as a party, image. Over the years, that image as a party is gone. You do not see...
Because it doesn't have those personalities.
No, you do not see the kind of personality at the forefront as you used to see.
But new personalities have emerged.
Yeah, but of course, it does not carry in terms of how they organize themselves.
Okay.
On the days as you see NPP leadership, you don't see that. In the past, NDC was personality dominant. Over the years, NDC is no longer personality dominant. You see, quite a number of people at the front of the NDC. And that's why I think that in terms of how they organize themselves, over the years, NDC had been much better, leaving the personality dominant behind, because obviously from the history, all right, Rawlings, etc., and then of course, Atta Mills came. But over the years, you see that there's a little change in the way the NDC organizes itself and the public perception than the way MPP organizes itself. And I'm very clear and I'm very, passionate about that in terms of how I perceive, this. And this perception is not only me. Quite a lot of people actually have that. If you talk about even young generation in the forefront, those days, all right, a lot of young people would want to see themselves in MPP. These days, you have quite a lot of young people want to see themselves in NDC. And these are things that we talk about as academics in terms of how these parties are actually perceived and how these parties actually mobilize themselves. It is very clear. And so when you talk about how these two parties mobilize and organize into elections, I think NDC had rather done better, than MPP over the years. I mean, I was in Secretary Takra those days. All of us aspired to be in MPP.
And that's your opinion?
Of course.
That's an opinion.
No,
This is not a
no. Wait, it's a research that, I mean, as I said, my PhD is on MPP strategy. So it's not an opinion. It's something that I've researched. There was a book that we published in, I think, 2017. It talks about the branding of these two parties and the way they actually project. And it's in there. I mean, it was pure research that was organized. And then you could see some of these evidences in that. So this is not an opinion at all.
Let me just throw in that we were trying to get Dr. H.S. Kanko. He's not supposed to be in the studio with us. We were supposed to reach him via Zoom or phone, but he's, on the journey. So I think we're having challenges with the network. So pardon us if he's not able to join us. Okay, so Francis wants you to call her when you're done.
Okay, I will.
Let's come to the Mahama candidature. What is wrong if the NDC uses any other person but Mahama? Because apart from before this report came out, there's been suggestions. People speak on social media, and now social media. If you want to ignore, that's your own problem. But social media informs a lot of the shaping decisions. Yeah, of course, yeah. And we've had analysts who've also mentioned that if John Mahama could take a back seat and just relax when the applause is louder. He should do that and just let this go and allow someone else to come in. What's wrong with that?
No, I think we should understand it's democracy. Democracy, until there's a limit, and you're actually caught in that limit, then of course you can say that you don't participate. But if it is not in that sense, then of course everyone has, the right to contest. I feel that maybe the former president thinks he still has a lot to give, and maybe his people actually believe in his leadership, and so I don't think that anyone can actually say that he shouldn't actually contest. Of course, you would perhaps offer an advice, but it has to be based on a very compelling reasons to the benefit of the party. If he's not electable, then of course you're going to actually say that he's not electable, so you advise him, and that's why I had a problem with the AIU report. But if there's no evidence to suggest that he's not electable, you couldn't actually say that he shouldn't actually contest, because it's democracy, So for me, I am not going to say that he should contest or not. It is solely in the hands of his party people, his delegates. If they feel that he's electable, if they feel that he's compelling as a candidate, then why not?
Does he give any competition to the MPP and how? As the candidate, should he be chosen by his party? Does he give any competition?
Yeah, of course. I think if he monitor, and as you said, I mean, I live on social media 24/7. Yeah. If he monitor the posture and the kind of energy, of his party's base in terms of the young people, especially. There's a groundswell of belief that he could actually take them to power,
Well, but there's also another group that thinks that, the NPP might not be good, but it's certainly not the NDC as a choice.
Yeah, that's what I've said, that there's a group of people who actually feel that, NDC is not a choice, but that's majority NPP people, all right, obviously.
Oh,
because they would feel that if there has to be any other, candidate, any other party after 2024, none of those MPP, it has to be their party. So clearly, you would actually have that because it's competition, and I always don't rule out, that possibility, because for me, it's competition, it's strategy. The one who has the compelling strategy wins. It is not for a taking that because a party has served 2 terms, it means they would be out of power. By all means, that's not how democracy works. Democracy actually works for someone or the one who is prepared, all right? So if come 2024 and NDC doesn't seem prepared, all right, you couldn't bangle your hopes on the perceived non-delivery of an MPP. If they're very much prepared and they're able to persuade, the voters, the reason why they felt or the voters felt that there had been non-delivery, they can win. And so you can't discount the issue of breaking the 8. You cannot discount, because you winning election after 2 terms of the other person is not for the given. You have to do the work. you have to strategize for. You have to go to the people and tell them why you're the best person to actually see to their livelihoods and see to their growth. If you can't convince them, the one who can would win the elections. You know, so both sides is not for a taking. You cannot say that because you're incumbent you're going to win 2024. That's not possible, because the trend does not even suggest that, because trend shows that every 8 years the party leaves. But when you're in a position, you cannot also bang your hopes on the trends that because with a revitalized candidate, you know, if NDC would try to revitalize by
so that's a contradiction?
It is, because you cannot suggest that the undoing of the MPP
government
would lead to NDC's win, and then also suggest that unless they bring
on condition that you change your
because then of course you have to be clear in what you want, what are you saying, you know. But you underpinned it with sluggish government in the performance, and then later on you said that, or even earlier on you said that if they revitalize their candidate. But the point is, you don't go into elections with only one thing. You go into elections, you have a candidate, you have a party, you have your policies, and even now, vice presidential candidate actually determines successes, isn't it? As we have seen, you know, Dr. Bawumia was amazingly, you know, a huge factor to, you know, Nanado's win 2016. You can't take that from him, and that tells you that vice presidential candidates are crucial, especially in these new dispensations. All right, so you have to have all these elements very well prepared. Otherwise, you cannot win the election.
How does the dynamics, just a few ones before I let you go, the dynamics of the voting population now, what do we look like? Those of us who
I think we have moved to the center, and I'm saying this because in 2014, we organized a study, a very big study, and we realized that we're looking at whether, you know, the usual things, rich men vote NDC, MPP, poor people vote NDC, you know, farmers vote. You know, those days we used to think, and we always say business people would vote MPP, you know, market women or market people would vote NDC. I mean, it's almost like a street, you know, understanding of political, you know, demographics, for example. So we tested that.
But it was largely a reality, wasn't it?
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. So we tested that, and we realized that almost all the parties are sharing these demographics. Okay. So you cannot now say that rich people will vote NDC, MPP, poor people will vote NDC, or business people will vote MPP, and then the other side people will vote, you know, NDC. There is a complete mix of these, and what it demonstrates is that the voter has come to understanding that there is no longer a staple demography for these political parties, although they have the ideologies, and I still think that ideologies
and have strongholds.
Exactly, and I still think that it holds. But even those people, when they feel, you know, apathetic, they feel that you haven't really represented them, they would actually move. You know, they would move and vote the other side, or they would stay away. So voter suppression, all right? So you have to make sure that you're going in as a centrist, making sure that you could call everybody who thinks that you're compelling, who thinks that you are prepared, who thinks that you have the ability to deliver what they can get or what they want. And then you can win the election. So despite the division, they have their own strongholds. It is clear that people would not be dogmatic. They will not say that because I feel that I am NDC or I am MPP, I would definitely vote for them. They can change their minds. You know, and we're not even talking about floating voters.
People are shifting from that dogmatism.
Exactly. Yeah, people are shifting. People are actually becoming more centrist.
Oh, okay.
And looking at, do you have the competencies to actually deliver what we think we are? And that's why people talk about we're maturing. You know, we keep saying, we're hearing the voter is discerning, etc. It is true. People are becoming much more discerning. People want to see that indeed you would do what you said you would do.
And how should the MPP also behave to achieve the break in the 8? How should they tap into this kind of dynamism that's emerging?
Yeah, they have to. You see, the point is, if you are unable to deliver, you have to be very frank with people and be direct and tell them exactly why you haven't been and what you can do to recover. In marketing, we say that it is not, it's not straightforward that you can deliver all the time. There are times that your service...
you can deliver everything.
Every day, yeah. There are times that your service will flop, all right? But there's what we call recovery, all right? So when you have flopped in your service, you go back to the customer, apologize, admit your mistakes, and tell them the way forward, how you're going to actually, get them that, and then solve it so that they feel, they can feel trusted. I mean, they feel, you have their trust again. So if there are things that you haven't been able to do, of course there are things that you have done, you have achieved them. There are things that you haven't been able to achieve them. Don't try to use propaganda to let people feel that you have done them, because it won't work. People can feel realities. So you have to be straightforward, talk to people and say, we're sorry we couldn't achieve ABC. It is because of ABC, the reasons, and those reasons have to be realistic. They have to be realistic, all right? And then give them the roadmap of how you're going to recover. And then people can actually forgive you and say, maybe you were genuine.
Which is what the NPP is trying to do now. I mean...
to be fair, there had been quite a number of propaganda statements. I don't want to go into that. But we had been told that things have transformed, and we know that things have been transformed in this country. So clearly, they have to be very straightforward with people and let people understand that yes, there are things that hadn't gone on well. Okay. There are others that have actually gone on well. The propaganda is not the way forward.
Talk about propaganda. Somebody is actually just throwing propaganda at me. Do I look pregnant?
I didn't see that.
You don't see that?
I don't have the eye to detect.
Can you tell someone is pregnant maybe for 3 months?
Honestly, I don't.
You can't tell. Yeah. Even for 6 months, you can't tell.
I can't.
I don't look pregnant.
No, I don't think so.
Let me go for a break. I'll be back shortly.
JA Plant Pool is your leading supplier of heavy-duty trucks, earth-moving equipment, lubricant, tires, batteries, sales of genuine spare parts and training. We provide high-quality mining and construction equipment, transport-related products and excellent service in a timely manner for the convenient undertaking of your business. Our major services include the sale, rental and leasing of earth-moving and heavy-duty equipment, light-duty services, buses and effective after-sales support in repairs and maintenance. Contact JA Plant Pool for all your heavy equipment needs to execute projects and contracts in the safest, durable and most effective way. Call on us on 020-000-0831 or 055-2088-161. Or send us an email to info@japlantpoolgh.com. Visit japlantpoolgh.com for more. JA Plant Pool. Safety, durability, efficiency, our trademark.
Stop that trash. Stop it now. Stop that trash. Stop all that trash. Stop it now. Your girlfriend gives you a new ride, and you go pick your side chick. Taking her for a ride. This lifestyle, dear, trash it. If you get dustbin for your place, do the shocky as you trash your waist. When you baller, you know get some, then hide your face.
Zoom Lion is giving you 1 million bins for free to get rid of your trash. Download the Zoom Lion app now for your free bin, or make trash collection payment, or simply dial *857#. Zoom Lion, your waste management expert.
All right, you're welcome back to Good Evening Ghana, and we are going to have another interview. Earlier on, we had a discussion with Dr. Kobe Mensah, who is a political marketing strategist. Now let's go into the area of tourism, and I have Mr. Kwesi Agyemang, a long time friend.
Hey. Well, I'm no longer your friend.
No.
Okay, all right.
No, right now.
We'll leave it at that.
Yes, leave it there.
Okay.
Right now, I'm just working.
All right.
When I finish working, we can talk about that one. This one there is work. Strictly work. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Annie.
How are you?
I'm good.
That's a big man sitting right in front of me. Oh.
No, I'm good.
We're all normal people.
Oh,
and then you
that.
come and hustle me.
Don't go there.
I'll go there.
Don't go there. Anyway.
So I hope that Tourism Authority had a successful Easter celebration.
I think Ghana had a successful Easter festivities.
I like that.
It's not just us. Everybody. I mean, if you look at not just Kwawu, everywhere, it's been a very successful Easter, and so we're happy that at least tourism is back, public gathering is back, events are back, people are out there spending money, and the economy will. Really.
We're spending money.
Yeah.
Or we're looking for money.
We were spending money. If you were in Kwawu, you will see that people came there
really
spent money.
How much did you spend?
Me, I wasn't there to spend money. I was there to observe. But at least our research team were out there looking at the numbers that came in, the activities that happened, outdoor activities. Everybody got a piece of the pie. Small business, big business. Everybody seems happy. And that's good.
I'm told that sometimes when we go to Kwawu, people actually carry their small businesses, big businesses to the mountains. Is that true?
When you say carry that,
if maybe somebody prepares simple wachi here, they can actually go there.
Oh yes, the vendors, there. A lot of vendors. I mean,
so food vendors will take their businesses there.
They take it there. Almost all the breweries set up their stands. Churches were there. It's like the whole 9 yards. Everybody had something to do.
Okay, so those of us who didn't go to Kwawu, maybe you can give us a feel of it. Let's see if we can have some sights and scenes in Kwawu. And then we come back to Mr. Kwesi Agyemang. Okay.
So this is the paragliding, right?
This is paragliding, okay. Yeah. Do you have sound under it?
But I just say, problem chase me, always problem chase me. From the stronghold of poverty, and lots of no opportunity. Go far every day, can buy quality. Promise them go do my legacy. We are in the summer many. Media was some na way. Watch it, Jimmy, Sagumechi. Maybe I place it back to Yendi. Life is hard, boy, be wild.
Yo, we are right here inside Kwawu, and you know what it is?
Play your cards, you go get a cash. I don't want to hard for the cash. All I try, can't reach you. They put good for my life, but I'm easy to break good. I don't want to hard for the cash. All I try, can't reach you. They put good for my life, but I'm easy to break good. The rapper, Kakere Bedin Kenny Asumupa. When you walk around, a racket, a better for one of your ginem. You need come up for your son and your game. I swat the peak and you came. One chin, or you love Papa. See a Benyan Cordy and a free Yame. They say that you want to get every day we text it to go so much.
That's one of the videos we actually saw on social media. This is the paragliding area. I think they will get you where the town. Or different towns.
Different towns was
looking
different
like
streets.
Or different streets.
Yes,
yeah. You guys have to start giving special names to the streets in Kwawu.
No, they have their names already.
Of course, but you guys are working with the chiefs. So you can deal with that.
Maybe, but I think
I've been there. I haven't seen any streets name yet in Kwawu.
You haven't been to the Obomin High Street.
Hey,
okay.
I haven't seen
you haven't been in Kwawu. You haven't been in Kwawu. That's all.
I've been there. Come on.
Okay. Not at Easter.
You're trying to expose me on my own show.
You've been there during Easter?
Yes.
And you were
Easter,
at the
I've been there twice.
Where did you go?
Easter, I've been there twice. I went to
a friend's house for food. That's
I actually
all.
went to a friend's house, but
I know,
that
but
was after
that's
I
all you
finished.
do. No?
I carried my show on the road.
Okay.
So I was doing on the road show.
Okay.
So I was on the streets,
Right.
various areas.
And you were not on the high street.
Yes, one was on the high street.
And what did you see?
Streets.
Yeah, lots of activities, lots of commercial activities,
Yeah.
fun, entertainment, everything mixed up, and that's what Kwawu is about.
Anyway, so we captured that we're targeting to raise, and this book is from Kwawu, just in case you
Yeah, that's the
haven't
Easter
seen.
guide we did. I mean, one of the things that people kept telling us is that when they come to Kwawu, there's so many activities, it's very difficult navigating through. So we had to put everything in one Easter guide. And so you had daily activities, things that were happening, the various sightseeing areas, the tourist sites, a little bit of the history of Kwawu, what was happening, messages from the chiefs and everything. So I think this year was quite unique for us in terms of putting together an LOC, the local organizing committee, made up of the various assemblies.
Yeah.
In times past, you have like Kwawu South doing their thing, East doing their thing, West doing their thing. But this time we said, let's sit together. And mind you, 3 months ago, we didn't know Kwawu was going to happen, you know, because we still were under some COVID. And so we started working on the protocols for how, if we were to do Kwawu, how was it going to happen? How were people going to come with their masks, this mass event, how were things going to be put in place? And God being so good, and thanks to the president, he eased all the restrictions. So we had, I think that broadcast was on the 27th or so of March. So we literally had about 3 weeks to now rally everything together, get in touch with our pilots, launch the paragliding festival, get the LOC working, speak to...
The foreign pilots were brought in within that short period?
Yeah, because they were on standby. They've been waiting for 2 years, you know, because wanting to come, because according to them, this site at Ojanima Mountain is one of the best flight sites around the world, and they always love to come. And so we had to bring them in. This time, for the first time, we had a Ghanaian tandem pilot, Jonathan, who was trained by the team that always come. And so, yes, we are getting there, trying to get the local pilots to become tandem pilots. We had about 6 other solo pilots from Ghana. So I think, all in all, it was a very good...
I've been there, the pilot's site.
Yeah.
With the likes of my old friends, Ifwa York, MFR.
Yeah.
I didn't fly.
Why?
Because I was afraid.
That you were going to fall off.
I don't know. The cliff. I was watching how people were doing it, and I was trying to tune my mind to it. I still haven't.
Okay, you'll get there. You'll get there. I think next year, in September, we'll be back there with the corporate paragliding, and I think that you should be able to do. Yeah.
I think I'll dare that. Yeah, I'll take the biggest risk.
So it went very well. I mean, this year we had a mix of tourism, the arts bits. I mean, a lot of musicians performing, the cultural bit with...
Did you send the musicians there?
You know, we had, not us per se, but working with the various hotels and different groups. For example, at Rock City, you had 3 nights of music, Kofi Kinata, Amachi Dede, Kwame Eugene, Kidi, all of them performing.
Organized by who?
By Rock City. And
Rock City organized?
Yeah. That was part of their package for patrons, and the numbers were there.
There's Rock City, and you're telling me I haven't been to go before.
And the president was there, actually, to listen to Kofi Kinata. And
what was the president's purpose there?
To celebrate Kwawu Easter.
That's
he does that almost every year.
Because I heard he was invited by the chief for something.
No, there was the Kwawu State Book Launch, but I mean, mind you, every year the president has been in Kwawu for Easter. I think he started going to Kwawu for Easter even before he became president. So if he hadn't come, that would be the surprise. So he was there, and he didn't come just to do the State Book Launch. He was part of activities. He was one of the patrons of Kofi Kinata's concert. So that's good. I mean, you had that. You had a lot of activities also in terms of the chiefs. The chief of Abetifi was celebrating his 30th anniversary, so you could see the culture of the Kwewu people. The state book launch also happened. The president was a special guest.
Oh, the
honor.
chief of apathy.
Apathy,
Okay.
yeah. So, and then you had the state.
Billion. Is it from Kwewu or from tourism in general?
No, tourism in general. Every year we set ourselves targets. I mean, in terms of, let's take it back from 2019, where we have a research team at the airport. They were also in Kwewu, and what they do is to try and get a feel of the average expenditure of people who come to Ghana.
Yeah.
In 2019, I think that was around 2,970 or so. And so when you add or multiply that by the number of visitors that come in, it gives you the average revenues that come in. We're hoping that eventually we'll move to what we call the tourism satellite account, where we dig deeper into, I mean, you probably have spent money on tourism without we capturing that. You ate at a restaurant. I mean, there are a lot of factors that we need to dig deeper into, and so that will come. But now, at least on a basic level, what we're able to do is to calculate the amount of money average people spend. I mean, the numbers have gone down because during COVID, when people came in, you couldn't even go out. Nightclubs were shut down. Places of entertainment were not operating. So we moved from about 2,900 to about 1,200. This year we are projecting that it will go up to about 2,500, and our target is to get 1 million visitors coming in, and that will give you the 2.5 billion. It's a stretch because we are coming out from 350,000 in 2020, 630 or so thousand, 623,000 in 2021. So we're trying to move the numbers from 623,000 to 1 million.
And where are the sites that we are expecting to be hosting these?
No, it's a number of people who come in. People come for so many other reasons: business conferences, meetings, events. I mean, even the paragliding, we had a lot of people coming from Germany, from Nigeria. Nigeria is our number 2 market. And so we go out there.
Number 2 market.
Yeah, for us in terms of inbound visitors coming into Ghana. We recently launched the Destination Ghana project. The whole idea is to complement what we are doing with the Return project, where we are focusing more on heritage tourism, where we talk to our Caribbean brothers, the African Americans that come back home this way you left off. But we're looking now to showcase more of the other side of our tourism assets, adventure, and that's why paragliding is becoming so popular, because it's an adventure sport. We have our culture that we are selling, fun activities, the leisure part of Ghana and all those things. In times past, we haven't projected that, and that's what we are projecting with the Destination Ghana.
But that's that's what we always say. But you know, the years go and the year pass by, and we just
I
don't
think, look
see.
at the numbers. I've given you numbers. So, for example, if you take paragliding, let's say by 2017, the average highest number that we've done, the highest number we've ever done over the Easter period was around 70. So what we did was to expand the takeoff base. When you look at the picture, you saw about 4 people waiting to take off at the same time.
Yeah.
In times past, it wasn't like that.
It used to be one or
one
two.
at a time. So you have somebody go and it will take another 15 minutes for another person to go. Now 4 people can fly at the same time and another 4 come in. We moved those numbers to around 280 in 2019. So that's growth. So it's not just we say it, we track the numbers.
So this year,
for example, before we went to Kwewu, we had almost 400 people registered to fly. Unfortunately, we could only fly about 194 or so. Why? Weather was not good. And we take safety very seriously. And so the pilots will not fly if the weather is not good. It rained the whole of Sunday. Almost the entire day it was raining. And so they couldn't fly. And that's when we had the highest number of people registered to fly. And so that it didn't help the cause. But in terms of people coming out to even view paragliding, we haven't seen numbers like that before. Thousands of people just standing there watching people take off. And if you go to the landing site, people come in there to see how people land. It's fun. I mean, watching it is adventure, watching it is fun. And so those numbers are growing. If you look at hotel room occupancy, I mean, the numbers are going up. 2-3 years ago, we didn't have Rock City. Rock City has come in. More hotels have been added on to the rooms, but still every room was booked. And so that tells you people are coming. Thanks to the work that we did with the IGP and his team, traffic control this year was the best ever. I mean, people could move around freely. Some people said, oh, we don't like Kwewu when we don't see the traffic, but we made sure that people could move around. I mean, we have people who have interviewed small businesses, and everybody is happy that business came, people came in, spent money. It wasn't just in the big hotels like Rock City. The small businesses also got something into their pocket, and that's good for the economy, and that's what tourism is about.
And on that note, I just want to, I saw him in your book. So we have the Minister for the Eastern Regional Minister, Sata Champong. Good evening to you, sir. Also a friend. And if he's the one that actually hosted me, so if you think that I'm telling lies, when we close the show, call him.
Okay, I know what you ate. Okay, so let's continue. Okay.
You know where I ate. So, and then Honorable Bayana Champong, who is also BTV constituency. Of course, if you mention Ross City, just go and look for Bayana Champong. Okay. Yes, and then Honorable Davis Opoko and also there, MP from Price as well, and then Honorable Joseph from Pong, MP from Koko.
So they were all there. Constituency. Doing their bit as members of parliament, making sure that everything, I mean, it was team efforts, especially the various chief executives of the assemblies, Nkoko, that's Kwewu South, East, West, they were all there. And I think for us, that's a model that we want to build on, making sure that all the investments that have gone to Kwewu, if you go there, I think it has the highest concentration of hotels, and we have to do more to make sure that people are able to recoup.
When you say it has the highest concentration of hotels, what do you mean?
Within a district or a small enclave. I mean, a lot of hotels in Kwewu. And we don't want it to be hotels that only get full during Easter. Okay. So we're working very hard. 2 years ago, in partnership with the Kwewu Professionals Network, we launched what we call Kwewu Homecoming, Yanko Kwewu.
Okay, I know about that.
Yeah, so that's happening again in September. We had a King of the Mountains biking race, brought teams from Nigeria, Togo, Benin to compete with the Ghanaian.
King of the Mountains biking race.
Yeah, so it's going to happen, And now with the road...
All in Kwewu.
All in Kwewu. It's all going to happen in September. September is tourism month, and we're going to even improve upon what we do this year, because we've engaged with the pilots. Now that we have more solo pilots coming in. In times past, when you go to Kwewu, everybody who is flying is a tandem pilot that is carrying somebody. But now we have more solo pilots, more Ghanaians are able to fly, and so it's going to be fun.
Ghanaians are able to fly?
Yes.
We've been able to train some of them, because I was just coming to ask you.
Yeah, so now we have Jonathan Kwe. I think there are about 5 different international broadcasters here to do a documentary on Jonathan, the first Ghanaian tandem pilot. He flew about 20 or so people over the Easter period. Very, very happy. Everybody is happy because he started flying in 2006 with the same group of pilots, Edstein and co. And they've trained him. Now he's been certified as a tandem pilot, and he's up there in the air.
Well, the expenses on training a pilot and going for a foreign pilot, which is more expensive?
Oh, the foreign pilots we bring don't charge us money. They come in here, we pay for their flights to come in and their accommodation. They don't actually charge us. But the whole idea is to build capacity of local. But it doesn't mean that after a year they train you. You have to fly a certain number of hours and then get certified before you can do the tandem pilot. You can fly solo if you are confident enough, if you've mastered it. But to be a tandem pilot, it's like learning how to fly. We don't give you an Airbus 382 move. You learn with the smaller planes, learn how to maneuver. That's the same thing with this one. So now we have Jonathan, we have about 13 other people who are going through various levels of training. Unfortunately, the Kwewu cliff, like you said, is very, very steep.
Yeah.
And so it's taking us time to get a place where you can train them. Now we have a place at Shayo Sudoku, and so we're going to make sure that these people are trained, and eventually we will not bring in foreign pilots. You can now go to Kwewu every time and fly. Thankfully, now that the road is done, I mean, I think we can have so many other activities.
Yeah, we still have drivers misbehaving on the road, and you have to be careful. There are some drivers who think they know the road too well. Yeah. They're very familiar, and so
the roads can be tricky. But I think it's all adds up to the fun. I mean, some people, as they're going up, they can't open their eyes, they close
You're
their
a
eyes.
typical man.
Yeah.
It adds up to the fun.
Yeah. They drive up there. I mean, once you go up there, you know you've conquered the mountain. Yeah. And so we want to add on. We want to add on the biking. We want to add on so many activities, conferences, other things to keep the Kwewu enclave going. But we also took notice of other activities. Yesterday, for example, we saw pictures from Lake Busomtwe, record number of people going there. We saw the Vane cycling in the Volta region, the Treasure Island, I think Foresight TV were doing something there. So it tells you that tourism is open, Ghana is open and ready, and things are happening. I think it's...
Also things are happening.
Yeah.
As to whether or not we are deliberate about them, from what you said,
when you say deliberate, when you say deliberate,
tell that you're very deliberate about Kwewu and some of the activities
it's not just Kwewu.
you are organizing.
All these people, I mean, for example, if you look at the activity that we've supported and activities that we've promoted, it's all part, that's the work that we do. And that's not, we just don't do marketing, we also do service assessment, quality assurance, leading to the Kwewu Festival. I think you heard of reports of hotels being closed down for not meeting the standard. We want to make sure that people are coming in, the visitor experience is properly enhanced. So we do a lot of things. We know that tourism these days is more activity driven. I mean, times when people will just come, fly in, go to sightseeing. That is still there, but that's a very small fraction, but a part of the whole equation. So now you have to really stimulate demand, create something. And so that's why we're working with private sector. We've supported a lot of programs, activities. I mean, December in GH, we launched it 2 years ago, and now Ghana is the go-to place in December. It's deliberate. And so all these deliberate actions are being taken.
Ghana is the go-to place in December?
Yes.
By who?
By everybody.
Whose standard is Ghana is the
Apart from you and everybody else is. But I mean, that's what we are trying to do. I mean, if we look at the numbers that came in December last year, even under COVID, it tells you that people have, I mean, events like Afrochella, you had what Sadiq and Co did, Wonderland and all those things. All these people, we engage with them. How do we support you? How do we make sure that your activity gets the traction that you deserve? I mean, if you look at what is happening in Takoradi and all those things, the festivals and all those things. There are those that are all...
What's it called? I don't want to mention the masquerade.
Yeah, it's there. And so these things are not, I mean, there's a lot of work that goes behind the scenes to get these things out there. Can we do more? Yes.
The masquerading festival, for example, how does the Ghana Tourism Authority play a role in it?
Yeah, we work with the organizers. We support them marketing-wise. We support them with some sponsorship. We also make sure that in terms of coordination with the various assemblies, the regional coordinating council and all that, we are part of it. And so these things don't come just by chance. It's grown. It's grown because of the sort of support that they get from government and from public agencies like the Ghana Tourism Authority.
What do we have to do about the Mole National Park?
When you say what do we have to do in terms of what? You want
have
more?
You been there recently?
I've been there, yeah.
What did you see?
Okay, so the Mole National Park, you know, there are things that need improvement in terms of, for example, tracking the animals. People have complained that you go in there, if you go to a safari, let's say in Kenya, they have these GPS trackers on the animals. So once they take you, they know where the animals are. Mm-hmm. So it's easier to now see the animals. In our case, they don't have the trackers. So sometimes the game wardens or whatever they call them, they have to now, the tour guides, the guys,
they'll just take you there.
They guess. They guess. And so that's an area that we've identified to improve. In terms of infrastructure going in there, I think the road is perfect. In terms of, for example, other facilities like you have the Zena Lodge in there, that's fine. And so there have been discussions, that is under the Forestry Commission. And so we've engaged with them under the Ghana Tourism Development Project that we are currently working on. Actually, Mole is one of the sites that is going to be redeveloped. And there are talks to get more animals in there so that when people come, because sometimes...
So if you get a private developer that wants to, support, take it up.
Zena Lodge is a private developer, so there are concessions that are given out by Forestry Commission. If you go to Mole, is there are so many other game reserves that are open, so you could engage with them. Shai is one of them. I mean, the improvements that are ongoing there. So I think we'll get there in terms of the planning.
Because I always say that, we have become a global village, obviously, and one does not have to travel to see the different things that are elsewhere. It's very easy to now get information on whatever it is that you want to find. And you get to certain areas and you know that, this place is a tourism or it's a tourist sector or center. It can be improved. You can do A, B, C around it and make it the beautification of it, the optics of it. But it's a tourist attraction center. But it doesn't become attractive because of how deteriorated it has become. So we're not just looking at, the opportunities or the low-hanging fruits here, but the difficult ones that we know that when we invest in, we can actually make more money from them.
And it's happening. For example, over the last few years, there are sites, if you go to Bunsu, just go to Bunsu. We've partnered with the Chimebuaka Traditional Council. We have registered the Bunsu Eco Park. If you go there, the facilities have been improved. If you go to Tafia Tome, you go there now, we've partnered with the community. Facilities have been improved. If you go to Kintampo Waterfalls, we've partnered with the community, the assembly, and the traditional council. Facilities have been added on. There's a new canopy walkway. There's a zip line being developed. If you go to Bonre, as I speak, the Kente Museum is ongoing. You go to Nzolezu, we've partnered with the community. And so these things are happening. It's not, you can take your cameras, go there, you see the development. But that is not the end game. The end game is to now start opening up for private sector investments to go into some of these sectors. So, for example, in Kintampo, when we started off, we did the canopy walkway, we've done the zip line. Now people have come in, they want to do restaurants. That's private sector. But we as public sector will do the heavy lifting. Some of the infrastructural work that we need to do are ongoing. If you go to the Odrianoma, for example, site, like I did indicate to you, 4 takeoff sites, the field can take off 4 people at a time. We've built a new facility for food vendors, and so over the period people are selling. And now there's a private sector that has come in. Over the period there was the Ghana Tourism Development Company organized a tent village. A lot of people came to camping site. And so these are things that we do to open up the sector. But as we do that, you hear more of what we do in terms of the marketing, but it doesn't mean the infrastructural activities are not going on. Currently, the National Gallery, for example, that has been closed down since 2014, is ready to be open. That's additional sites. Kwame Nkrumah Park has been earmarked for development. I think the procurement process for the contractor is currently ongoing, and that will be developed. The minister has assured all of us that by the end of the year, we will have a new Kwame Nkrumah Park. So these things are ongoing.
I mean, the reason why I actually mentioned Mole is because I went there personally, and I was sad when I actually entered the, I don't know what you call them, the room.
The Zena Lodge, or there's
not the Zena Lodge,
motel.
Not the motel. Where you have the species of the animals. And the tour guides will take you to, explain to you and educate you on what type of animal it is.
The exhibition hall.
The exhibition hall. It looked so poor.
That's feedback. We take it.
Yeah.
We'll work with the managers of
and it's almost like a museum. When you travel outside and go to a museum, you can't even have access to, if there is this as a part of, as an animal or as a species, you can't touch it because it's been put in the package such that it's not accessible by you.
But you see, that's not, let's not confuse.
To accept that.
I said I take it. I said I take the food. That was the first thing I said. But then when you kept going on about wanting to see, and that's why
that's not to say that I want to see that,
okay,
but I mean,
let's move on.
Anyway, we have a few minutes to go. Let me find out. Previously, we made about $3.3 billion, and then we brought the revenue generation down from tourism. Why is it so?
No, because of COVID. Because after 2019, we were riding on. I mean, the first quarter of 2020, for example, was exceptionally good. So we were hoping that we could build on to around 1.3 million visitors coming in, but COVID happened. I mean, in March, when we had the first few cases, people had actually booked tour packages to come to Ghana. It was 3 weeks to Easter, and they had to take the Sibre Kwama team from the Kwahuma to come out to say, look, that's Sibre Kwama Ejapon, sorry.
Ejapon.
Yeah, sorry. To come out to say, nobody should come to Kwahu for Easter. Every activity, public gathering stopped, airports shut down, borders closed, and so where are the numbers? The visitors will not come, and so the numbers went down. 2021, as we started easing up a little bit, airports opened, the numbers went back up again to around 600,000. This year we're targeting 1 million, and that's our focus, and that's why we are very, very aggressive in the work that we are doing in terms of trying to bring in more conferences. We are trying to position Ghana as a MICE destination. MICE is meetings, incentives, conferences, and events and exhibitions. So that's what we are doing. We are targeting some other markets that traditionally we haven't, because we sell a lot of our heritage side, the castle, the forts, but now we are moving into adventure, fun, leisure, and other cultural things that we can sell to, especially the European market. If you look at the profile of people who are coming in for paragliding, a lot of Europeans, they love adventure. We have adventure, let's sell it to them, and that's what we are doing, segmenting the market and making sure that we're able to sell to different markets with different messages.
How about the castle and the forts? What's their state now?
Castle and Fort, that's also part of the Ghana Tourism Development Project.
Are they in good shape?
No, not in the shape that we all want it to be, but I think it's work in progress. There's work ongoing.
Where?
Work ongoing as in the
which
process.
Of the castles, which of the forts?
Elmina, Cape Coast.
We're working on what?
When you say working, it doesn't mean that if you go there now, you see construction going on.
Okay, so
but it's a process to improve them. That is going on under the Ghana Tourism Development Project. It's a project under the ministry, funded by the World Bank, a $40 million project. And all these sites that are listed are part of them. Kwame Nkrumah Park, Elmina Castle, Cape Coast Castle, Fawcett, Atunu, and all those things. Some of the work have already started. Like, for example, if you go to Azim, it's there. I mean, I mentioned Zulezu, I mentioned Bonre, the Yasantua Museum, the Yasantua Mausoleum. All those things are happening. I would think you have to get out there with your cameras and see. I mean, I think eventually these sites will be upgraded, will be built to a certain level. But that alone will not do it for us. And that's why you have to add on the marketing components, creating festivals, creating events. Afrochella, for example, over the last few years, is a private sector driven, but heavily supported by governments. And it's become a go-to place. Recently, we met with the Akwaba UK guys. They bring the numbers. We say, how do we work together to move your numbers up? When the numbers come in, they'll stay in the hotels. And that money goes to the private sector. And that's why when we calculate money coming in, last time we said 3.3 billion, people say, where's the money? The money is with the hoteliers, it's with the food vendors, it's with the chop bars, it's with the drinking bars, it's with the tour operators.
Oh, that's how you calculated it?
Yes. If you come into the country, the average expenditure, that is scientific. We have researchers at the airport. They calculate that 2,970. Multiply that by the number of people who come in. Very, very simple arithmetic. This time we are targeting 2.5 billion with the assumption that we can move the average expenditure.
And how do we benefit from that by extension?
The monies go to the private sector, they pay taxes to government,
Exactly.
They use that to employ more people, create jobs. People see people coming in, they make investments into the sector. That's how the country benefits, and that's how everybody benefits. Tourism.
So is the tourism authority able to give us nominal figures as to, by way of taxes, if we raked in $3.3 billion, what did the government make from that?
So I mentioned that we have what we call the tourism satellite account, which is more of a deep dive into these numbers. So we have the Bank of Ghana, the Ghana Revenue Authority, the Statistical Service, Customs, everybody, GRA, everybody part of that conversation in how we track how these funds, as they come in, where they go, how the taxes are paid, foreign exchange earnings, and all those things. We are getting there because we have the what you call the Tourism Satellite Account Committee now working. But in the interim, the numbers that we get, for example, we get numbers from immigration, who is coming, where they are coming from, age, demographics, and all that. We use that to do analysis so that when we are sending out messages, we know that it's a youth market. So how do you position the market versus if it's an older market? But so far, I will say so good. Wonderful Easter festival for us, and we're looking forward to September back in Kwewu.
September, yes, sure. I think I'll try and be there.
Yes, you have to fly.
It's too early. Mr. Kwesi is the CEO for the Ghana Tourism Authority. Thank you.
Thank you,
coming
Annie.
on. Good evening, Ghana. And that's what we have for you this evening. My time is up, so I'll leave you here. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again on Thursday. Good evening.
Metro TV, insightful and inspiring moments.
Has Christianity always been one of the religions in the world to you?
Oh, hallelujah. Christianity is not a religion, neither is it a joining of a church and doing the Christian things like